Elden Ring network test is already out here and we have been enjoying it for quite a while. Thanks to it, we were able to see a bunch of whole new mechanics that we can use and play around and toy around with in Elden Ring. One of those mechanics is, of course, Ashes of War. In this video I will be guiding you how to use them properly, how to be as efficient as humanly possible, how to be as efficient damage-wise speaking, while using the new mechanic, quote-unquote new mechanic, Ashes of War. What is up, you damn gorgeous and beautiful gamers, and welcome back to RPJames, this merry old corner in the internet where we like to discuss about RPGs. If you haven't already, I would very much like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, because there's always interesting stuff that you can find if you browse around here in the channel. Also, I would very much like for you to spare me a like in the video, because it really helps me like you have no idea. That being said, let's get into the matter. There seems to be a consensus out there and a lot of confusion about how properly Ashes of War work. There has been a lot of statements from interviews and journalists and just playing people toying around with them, and the information can be quite ambiguous a little bit. I have this article right here from PC Gamer that reads as it follows. You may know that already from interviews and official gameplay footage, but here's the big thing. Those weapons, called Ashes of War, can also imbue weapons with affinities, which means that you can basically make any weapon in the game as a magic weapon, or change which stats it scales with. You can potentially do this really early in the game, as soon as you find an appropriate ash. Want to play a sorcerer with a giant club that actually scales on int? You can totally do that. And you don't have to wait until you're 20 hours deep into Elden Ring to make that happen. You don't need rare late-game blacksmithing materials to shift to elemental properties of your weapons anymore. And this is where the main problem is. This is not a new mechanic. This has always been present in all of the Souls games. And we can actually, we do have the knowledge of how to use them properly. Also, another big important thing, neither in any one of the previous Souls games you had to be late game and have to be searching for late game materials to properly use them. Also, another big confusion that comes from all of this kind of consensus that has been flying around with all of these statements. You can definitely be a mage with a club by allocating an Ash of War into a club, but it's not going to be as efficient as it can be. Now let me explain. Let's go through all of the Ashes of War that we have so far in the network beta test. We have the standard Ashes of War. This path respects the weapon original scaling damage. No special properties will be applied, but skills may still be selected. Then we have Keen Ashes of War. Increases dexterity scaling, decreases strength and base damage. Quality Ashes of War balances strength and dexterity scaling, decreases base damage. Lightning Ashes of War adds lightning damage, decreases base damage and strength scaling. Magic Ashes of War adds magic damage and intelligence scaling, reduces base damage and strength dexterity scaling. Sacred Ashes of War adds holy damage, decreases physical damage, most damage negation and strength scaling. This is also for shields. Now let's go back to the main topic. Let's discuss how to properly use them, how to be as efficient as humanly possible. How are you able to dish the most out of the damage for these things? If you haven't already, if you do not know how scaling works on the Souls games, I highly advise you to go watch my scaling explanation video. It will be in this very same video at the end of the video, on a video card on the top right corner. Imagine for a moment, let's take the Claymore as an example. Let's say, this is an example, remember, let's say that the base damage scaling for the Claymore has the on strength and the on dexterity. And probably the Claymore is your favorite weapon. But oh dear, you're a cleric. You scale on faith, so you probably want to be allocating. You probably want to place an Ash of War that increases the scaling for that weapon, for the Claymore, to be on faith. The problem is that that is not the most efficient way to use the Ashes of War. Do have in mind that Ashes of War in Elden Ring are pretty much gems from Dark Souls 3. And how the gems work, how do these Ashes of War how these Ashes of War work. They change the scaling of the base weapon. But the weapon already has a base scaling. It already has some base stats. It's going to modify them, but it's not going to nullify them. So yes, by all means, you can place a faith scaling on any weapon that you like, but it's not going to get the most out of the weapon. Now let's switch back, let's take a closer look at the quality Ashes of War. Let's remember that if potentially the claimer has C on strength and C on dexterity, if you place a keen Ashes of War into that weapon, it's going to increase that. It's not going to do anything to the base, so essentially it's probably going to raise it up to B. So that way you will have a B scaling, you're going to increase that scaling, and that is how you can be most efficiently. Now let's say that you're a mage. Let's take the example of the cloth. The cloth has a C, scaling on strength, and you place a magic Ash of War into that cloth. It is indeed going to give you magic damage, base magic damage. It's going to give you scaling on intelligence, but the scaling on strength is already going to be you are not going to be taking advantage of that scaling. It's going to be going to waste. And the Ash of War is probably not going to give you that huge augment on magic. It's probably just going to give you a C, which is not bad. But if you want to be as efficient as humanly possible, if you want to have the most damage out of your Ash of War, you would be better off searching for a weapon that has base damage scaling on intelligence and then placing that scaling damage on intelligence, that Ash of War that scales with magic, on top of it, potentially being able to raise it up to S, all the way up to S. So let's say, for example, imagine for a moment that you find a weapon that scales on B and intelligence, and you place the Ash of War, the magic Ash of War, onto that weapon. It's going to raise it up all the way to S. Yeah, it adds versatility to the game. This is not, I'm not saying that this is the only way that you can use the Ashes of War. Let's have, for a moment, let's think that the Claimer is your favorite weapon, or a halberd, or a longsword, I don't know. We all have different favorite weapons in the game, and you want to be a cleric, or you want to be a mage, or you want to be a dark mage, and you want to use a Claimer, but the Claimer is not going to be scaling of your intelligence. You can definitely place that magic Ash of War into the weapon, and it's not going to give you the most damage, it's not going to give you the most efficiency, but it's going to allow you to go through the game fairly dishing decent amounts of damage. And do have in mind that if you're a mage, you're probably going to be focusing mostly on using spells and using your weapon as a secondary weapon. If you're like me and you always like to find ways in video games to be as efficient as possible, to be as broken as possible, to be as overpowered as possible, the most efficient way to use the Ashes of War is by finding weapons that already have an affinity close to that Ash of War. Let's go back again, let's do a recap. Let's say that, for example, we have a katana. A katana would normally have C scaling on dexterity. If you place a keen Ashes of War, which increases dexterity scaling and decreases strength and base damage, it's probably going to raise it up to A, and in some cases, like Dark Souls 3, it's going to raise it up to S. So that way you're going to be getting the most out of that weapon if you combine the base scaling of the weapon and the scaling that the new Ashes of War gives you. Do have also in mind that we are overlooking a little bit the skills which are weapon arts that were already present in Dark Souls 3. Let's say, for example, that you like a weapon art, a weapon skill, but you don't like the scaling that it gives you. You can choose the standard Ashes of War to keep the main base stat scaling from the weapon and still be able to use that skill. But yeah, that is how you would mostly efficiently use the Ashes of War in Elden Ring. If you find the information useful, if you find the content enjoyable, If you had a good time with these conversations with RPJames, I would very much like for you to hit that like button. Like I said, it really helps me a lot, and I will be posting as much as Elden Ring videos as possible, sharing my humble knowledge that I have for the Souls formula with you guys, so that you can have a better time playing Elden Ring. So if you're new to the Souls games, if this is your first Souls games, Souls game, pardon me for that, this is probably a place where you want to be. We also discuss a whole bunch of RPGs out there. That being said, I hope that you have a beautiful day, beautiful day, and I will be seeing you them gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day.